Good morning. We are live. This is Attorney Vince Davis, and this is The Secret, How to Fight CPS and Win. I'm joined today by two very special guests. We have Mother Rose. Good evening, Mother, or good morning. And we also have Miss CJ Hess Clements. CJ, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm as well as can be expected, I guess.
Good. I want to thank you both for joining the show this morning and wanting to share your experiences with CPS. So, Mother Rose, we'll start with you. Tell us what your connection or relationship or problems with CPS are and where you're from.
We are in Yolo County, and my case started in 2019 based off of false allegations. My teenager got grounded and I had took her phone away. So the next day she made a false claim at the school that I had hit her. And I guess she claimed that she was scared for the other children. So I got a text message saying that CPS took all the kids from the school. I never received any warrant. We spoke with the social worker, which my dad was asking about my rights, and that really made the social worker mad and said that the kids couldn't go to him and they couldn't come back to me. And then right away we went to court, and that attorney said, "Oh, we just go along with it." I never have been involved with CPS. I didn't know anything. I didn't know about my rights. I was just, terrified, under duress. I just thought that that's the way it goes. She's like, we just go along with it. Later, I found out we could have fought it, contested, went to trial, and if we lost that, appealed. So they took 3 kids at first, and they gave me no visits at first. I got just one before court, and then after that, they said no visits. It was quite a while later, the visit started up, and it was minimal, just with my son. They took my son out of his school right away, put him in a different school. They moved him around. They said he was being defiant because he wanted to come home. He kept crying for me. And then they put us on Zoom because of COVID. And I never seen my son in person again. Even when everything went back to normal or people were getting in person, they kept us on Zoom. They sent him 2 hours away with strangers, I guess, who wanted to adopt him. Even we were in reunification, but the person monitoring the Zoom was the foster parents' social worker who were helping them to adopt him while we were, I was supposed to get him back. I did everything I was supposed to.
Hold on, Mother Rose, let me ask you a question, okay? Because I'm getting a lot of information, which is great, and there are things that I want to bring up. So let me just jump in for a second, and I apologize if this ruins your story.
No, it's okay.
And the flow of your story. First of all, you said that there was never a warrant issued to detain your children?
Right. I never received anything. I would ask and not get any response.
Okay, so hold on. If that is true, and I can investigate it for you, but if that is true, you should consider filing a lawsuit against Yolo County. They cannot detain your children without a warrant or court order unless it's an imminent emergency circumstance. And what you just described at the beginning of this case is not an exigent circumstance, under my opinion. And I'd be willing to go to court on that one. So that's number one. Number two, how many kids are we talking about?
It was the 3 at first.
All right. So let me just ask you a question. How long ago did this happen?
It started in 2019.
So they took the kids away from you in 2019.
Right. And they claimed that it was imminent danger.
Okay. Well, They can always claim it, but that's defined in the law. Have you talked to any attorney, civil rights attorney? I'm not asking for any names, but have you talked to anyone about bringing a lawsuit for this?
No, we've just been kind of making a list of people to call, and I have not. I know others have kind of called around.
Okay, because you have a very limited time to bring a civil rights lawsuit. I mean, usually, and there's some extenuating circumstances, an event happens, you have 2 years to bring a lawsuit. That's why I was asking you when this happened. Now, there's other ways that the statute of limitations can be extended, but it's not, like a guaranteed thing. Next, I wanted to ask you, do you have your children back with you?
No. No, I completed everything they gave me, and I did extra classes on my own. I had
Okay,
good
but
letters from teachers, therapists, and certificates, everything.
Okay, let's go to your CPS case. Do you know what stage you are in your CPS case? And by stage, I mean, is this the 6-month hearing, the 12-month hearing, the 18-month hearing? Have you lost your reunification services? Have you lost your parental rights? Have they adopted your children, et cetera, et cetera?
With my son, my oldest daughter is above 18 now, and they had closed the case. And then the other one's going to be 17, so they closed that. But the one who was 8, they did seize my services, even though I had completed everything.
Wait. They seized your services. What do you mean? You mean they terminated your services?
Right.
Okay, they terminated your family reunification services, and then what?
And then they went for TPR, claiming that there was no bond, even though I had proof there was a bond. I asked for the bonding study. My attorney would not do it. She wouldn't say anything, and now I wish that I would have just spoke up or submitted something. So the judge here in Yolo County terminated my rights despite stuff that we had turned in, or that I had turned in on my own.
Okay. So in other words, you have 2 of your children and you lost one through termination.
I don't have the other 2.
I thought you said the cases were closed.
Yeah, but they didn't. One's in college and one's with her dad.
Okay. Does the one that is with her dad, does she not want to live with you?
They told me that she didn't want visits, but I've heard something else through other sources and my attorney, and I haven't reached out. I don't think I can. I'm not sure.
So your relationship with your children is completely demolished.
Yeah, CPS here destroyed our lives, all of us.
Did you always have a court-appointed attorney in the CPS case?
In the middle of it, we had hired one for a part of it, and he said like, oh, I'm going to fight for you. She's not doing this, this, and this. And then as soon as he went in there without me, with everybody in there, he came out and said, oh, they just want you to do this plan, and you do it, and the kids will come back. May 4th, 2020, you just do the services. If you don't, he said the DA is going to come after me and press charges if I don't go along with it.
Press charges for what?
For child abuse. So, and I had witnesses.
Wait. That's what you were told?
Right.
Okay. I'm kind of flabbergasted because that's illegal. It's called extortion. Nobody can threaten you with a criminal proceeding to make you do something that you otherwise wouldn't do. Not a lawyer, not a DA, no one. Did anybody hear him say that?
Yes, I had my mother, my father, one of my best friends, and one of the child's father was right there.
And they all heard him say that?
Right. And they all, they were scared too, and said, just, I guess you have to go along with it.
Okay. Now, I don't know who this is, but someone named Love Oneself says she is not being truthful. Do you know who that is?
No, I
Okay.
never seen that.
You never know who's, on the internet watching these things.
Oh,
And you
yeah.
might be surprised. I have guests all the time, and I get, emails saying, oh, this wasn't true, that wasn't true, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
But if you're accurate, I mean, your civil rights have been violated up, down, and all around. And I would suggest that you speak to someone, a civil rights attorney that does these CPS cases. There's a guy up in San Jose. I won't mention his name, but there's a guy up in San Jose that's fairly well known statewide that does these types of cases. You might think about trying to contact him just for an interview, just to see what he or she, it's not a she, it's a he, what he can do for you. Um, so, if anything, because, what you're telling me is within the realm, well within the realm of possibility. I mean, I've heard this story all across Southern California, all across Northern California, all across the country. And, the odd thing is that I've done cases in Yolo County. I know what kind of SHIT they pull, and they really need someone to sue them to stop the shenanigans that they pull.
Right.
You
For
know,
sure.
and the sad thing is, I represented a guy. No, I represented the mother. I represented a mother where this happened. She was at the time associated with, what's the college up there? UC Davis.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there was a crucial part in the case where the social worker testified and reported that the oldest child said ABC, right?
Hmm.
And my client was telling me all the time the kid didn't say that. And then we had the trial. I can't remember if we were able to call the minor as a witness to ask the minor that question. A lot of times, especially in Northern California counties, when you want to call the children as witnesses, they they prevent you from calling the child as a witness, which I think is a whole constitutional problem. But anyway, later the case closes. The kids are placed with relatives out of state in a guardianship. The parents move back to that same state and basically have visitation with the kids routinely. They see the kids all the time, from what I understand. But anyway, the kid apparently told the parents that she never said that. That was
Right.
something that was
That
made up,
happened in the case also.
made up by the social worker. Now, here's the thing that the judges are faced with. Do they believe the kid's recantation, or do they believe, you can get that, go ahead,
I'm so sorry.
or do they believe the kid's first statement, or do they believe the social worker when the kid says, when the social worker says ABC, and the kid says that's always E. So it's a really big problem. But you know what would stop all of this? If they wore body cams.
Right.
There was a huge thing, especially in Southern California, to getting LAPD and I think LA County sheriffs too, to wear body cams. But the thing was that the price and the technology, the cost of the technology got so low, they couldn't justify not using body cams. Now they got problems where some of these officers, somehow their body cam's not working or turned off.
Yep.
But
I've seen that.
going into the social worker realm, you know, they could easily wear body cams, easily and cheaply.
Yeah.
And it
I
would,
had asked to record, and she said, no, absolutely not. I cannot record our meeting. And then when I got the report, it twisted all of my words.
right. So you know what I do? What I tell people in that situation? Tell them you're recording. And if they say, no, don't record me, you're recording. Say, well, there won't be a meeting then if you don't want to have it with me unless I record.
Yeah, I wish I would have done that.
Social workers not telling the truth is a huge problem. I mean, I don't know if our society wants to recognize that or sweep it under the rug or what. But, look, they're human beings, right? And they're trying to win a law case, a legal case. So them saying ABC when it's really XYZ is not unusual. And a lot of times it's usually this. Kid said ABC, worker writes BCD. Just a
Yep.
little twist on the facts, right? Now, was that because it's not recorded and their memory thinks something else? A lot of times social workers will go out. Like I'm a social worker and I go out today and I interview you. I'm not taking notes, right? I'm generally not taking notes. I'm surely not taking word for word notes because I can't do that. I've never been trained to do that. I don't do shorthand. And then what happens, I'll interview you this morning. I'll go to lunch with friends or colleagues, and then, sometime today, later today or tomorrow, I write the summary of our interview. By definition, in human experience, I can't accurately record what we talked about. Humans don't have, or most humans don't have that photographic memory. Now, there's a small percentage of the world or population that do, but they're not working social workers. I can tell you that.
Right.
So, that's what I advise people to do. Offer the interview. It's going to be recorded. If you don't want to have it recorded, I'm sorry, then there won't be an interview.
Yeah, I
Because,
wish I would have done that.
yeah,
They did the same thing with my son. They said he said something, and then at a visit, we were playing, and I had asked him. He's like, I never said that. He was like, and I was like, well, that's what they said, and he was pretty upset about it. He's like, I never said that. Why are they saying that? Yeah, so we're just, in our town, coming together, supporting each other. And I suggest that other people do that as well in their area. They can start a group, get others. It's growing every day. We just need that support because it's not out there really.
right. Excuse me. I agree with you 110%. I met someone on the show, by the way, maybe a week ago from Yolo County, and you guys were working with folks in Northern California to try to make change. And there is a woman, I won't mention her name, who's been successful at making change with CPS. And I think at least for her county, I think, you folks in Yolo County should just, copy, rinse, and repeat. Just do the exact same thing that she's doing, or she did in, I think it was Contra Costa County, if I'm not mistaken. I forget the county. It was up there in Northern California. Do the same thing because, votes matter. Judges care about being recalled, and if
Right.
things are happening, the only power you have, assuming you're not a multimillionaire or billionaire, is your vote and your ability to organize. Right?
Right.
Have you been watching the Uber and Lyft, what I call the Uber and Lyft war against the state of California? Have you been following that?
I've
You know,
seen
Cal-
some stuff like that.
so California wanted to tax them a certain way, right? That would completely ruin their business model, right? What did they do? They went out and changed. They posted propositions, you know, proposed laws. They didn't
Mhm.
even go to the state legislature. They got propositions, they got signatures, they got votes, and they're able to battle the government. Now, later, I think some court said part of it was unconstitutional, even though they won, right, with the votes. It was unconstitutional. So all that's up in the air, but it's always a big fight. But look what they did.
Right.
They didn't go to
Yep.
the legislature. They got they got laws on for you to vote on through a proposition. You know, theoretically, that's not hard to do.
Right. And we're willing to put work in and learn and do everything that we need to do, because it just seems unfair that if you have money, it seems like, oh, you deserve your kid if you have money and you can hire an attorney. And those who are low income and can't afford an attorney, it feels like we don't have rights to have kids, or they'll just be taken away.
Right.
And it's,
But but let me ask you something. Is that model that you described any different from anything else in life in our society?
it matches up to court.
To everything, right? What if you're a criminal defendant,
Right.
right?
Same thing.
You know, I'm not making any comment one way or the other on whether he's guilty or not. But look at the O.J. Simpson case. You might be too young for this,
I
but
remember.
if he didn't have the dream team, of lawyers, which he had, probably the most powerful legal team ever put together, he's guilty. He would be found guilty, in my opinion. But his lawyers did such a job that, the state couldn't compete with it. The DAs they were totally outmatched. Totally. But, if OJ Simpson is just some black guy, who doesn't have the celebrity and the money, he's probably in jail right now for killing 2 people. Now, I'm not saying he was guilty or not guilty, but, he's not going to win that case without that dream team. Johnny Cochran, one of the greatest trial lawyers of all time in the United States. Barry Scheck, just to name a few. I can't remember everybody on there. I mean, I watched the trial, but I mean, that legal team that's unprecedented. But you went to court. You didn't have Johnny Cochran. And other than the fact that he's dead now, I mean, even if you did have Johnny Cochran, you probably didn't have to, $1 million to pay to hire him.
Right.
So what do you do? I've been listening to you, and I will bet you $1 that you never got on the witness stand to testify in your whole CPS case. Would that be accurate?
Right. We wanted the
No.
kids to too, and the lawyer
Wait.
said no.
Wait. But do you know you have a constitutional right to testify?
Right.
And you went with some lame brain legal strategy that you thought you could win or things would turn out better if you don't testify. I tell people all the time, look, when you go to court and you have a trial, okay, sometimes they have trials with just attorneys arguing, okay? That is not a trial. That is you lose automatically. You know why? Because lawyers arguing is not evidence. Judge has to make a decision on evidence. What's evidence? People on the witness stand, testifying, documentary evidence being brought into court. If you don't bring any of that into court and you don't get on the witness stand to testify, the social worker's report controls. Okay? And I bet you and everybody watching this don't realize that. Now, how and why this happens, there are a lot of theories, And listen, I used to be a court-appointed attorney 25 years ago. So to say that I have some understanding of what happens in these courtrooms when you have a court-appointed attorney, I say that because I have experience. I think I was a court-appointed attorney maybe 10 or 13 years, maybe more. And
Mine had said on record that she didn't want to file anything because she didn't want her name on it. And she told the judge that also. And the judge turned around and said I was the problem. So it's very confusing to me.
you know what? I'm appalled, but I'm not surprised in your county. Not at all. I mean, when I first walked into that courthouse and to that courtroom, they looked at me like I was from Mars. I was a freaking alien.
It's really bad here.
And, you know, the fact that I wanted to fight for my client, you know, put somebody on the stand and cross-examine them, oh my God, it was like I committed a capital offense.
Yep.
So, you know, I'm not surprised, but I think that you need to speak to someone. I'm going to transition to Miss C.J. Hess. Miss Hess, tell us where you're from and how you're connected to.
So I'm also from Yolo County.
Okay.
I actually grew up in the foster system here in Yolo County. I was taken from my parents when I was 5 years old. I was eventually...
Time out. Stop for a second. I'm sorry for interrupting this, but I have to tell you this right now. You, my friend, should be writing a book about your experiences in foster care, because people don't know. People don't know. Your experiences in foster care and your experiences now in this system. I meet a lot of people in that situation, just like you. And for whatever reason, they don't want to tell the story. See, I can't tell the story, right? It's not my personal experience. But you should tell your story, and I'll help you put it in a book if you want. All right? Because it's such an important topic.
Yeah.
And the rest of the world, you know, the rest of the world thinks foster care is a great place. You know, it's a great place. Okay, so I'm sorry to interrupt you. You grew up in foster care, and now as an adult, you had a child or children, and what happened?
I did. They ended up placing me in an abusive home, which I grew up in with my biological grandmother. So CPS placed me with my grandmother, and then when I had my daughter, in 2019, I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer a week after miscarrying my second daughter. And as you can imagine, that was pretty traumatic. I couldn't keep my house anymore, and I was sick. I needed help and support. So I stopped living on my own. I quit working. I dropped out of school, and I came back to live with my grandmother. I lived with her for 1 month, and CPS showed up on my doorstep one day and told my grandma that they were taking my daughter, that they had a warrant. I wasn't even here. I was at the doctor's having treatment for my illness. And my grandma called me and told me CPS was here and that I needed to come home right away. I immediately stopped my treatment, literally made them pull out the IV and was like, I'm going now. And I came home. And by then the CPS workers and the police officers that were here, they were gone. And so I grabbed my daughter and I was like, okay, well, if they say I can't be here, because they were telling my grandma they were taking my daughter because we were staying here at her house. And they considered her to be abusive. And granted, she was towards me, but she never was towards my daughter. It was a weird relationship, and she's gone now. She passed away, but I ended up leaving my grandma's house that day, and I went to go stay with a friend. I got bombarded with phone calls from the social worker saying that I was absconding with my child and that I needed to come to the CPS office and turn her in, drop her off. I never saw a warrant. I never, there was like nothing. It was, I called my lawyer. She said, just do what CPS says and, drop her off today and I'll have her home by the end of the week. And obviously that didn't happen. I fought and I fought for 2 years while battling cancer. I never missed a visit. I did parenting classes, therapy. I took extra classes. I was so set on being better. I started studying gentle parenting and completely turning around my life. I beat cancer 6 months ago. And, as I've mentioned, my grandma's passed on, so she's not a factor anymore. But they still stripped my rights and adopted my daughter out to a complete stranger who won't even let me talk to her. I've had no contact with my daughter for over a year. I really don't know what else to say. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. How old was your daughter?
My daughter was 3.5 when they took her. She was 5.5 when they adopted her out, and she'll be 7 next month.
May I ask what allegations they made against you to take your child?
There was a list of them. It started out because I had cancer. They said because I was sick, I couldn't take care of her. And then as I was going through treatment and doing all the classes, they changed the reasons to my family is toxic. And then when I cut all contact with all my family, because they told me I could get my daughter back if I did, I ended up alone in a homeless shelter battling cancer and fighting them. And then after that, they changed the reason to my mental health. They had a psychiatrist examine me, and they diagnosed me with a list of mental illnesses that, honestly, I don't even think I have. I think I'm almost positive that I am undiagnosed ADHD. My siblings, both my siblings, my biological siblings, are diagnosed as ADHD and have been since they were children. Unfortunately, I was never tested, but I show a lot of symptoms. And the thing I don't show is the hyperactivity. I show, the depression side. I show the zoning out, the disassociation, and that's where they're getting, she's crazy. And I remember I had this psychological evaluation done by a doctor picked by CPS. They told me who to go see. They didn't even let me pick my own doctor. And I've come to find out this doctor has worked with
Uh-oh, Miss CJ, I think we lost you. Mother Rose, are you there?
Yes.
Okay. I think we lost CJ.
Uh-oh.
She just froze.
Get back in.
Is there any way that you can contact her via text or anything? Do you know her like that? Okay.
Yes.
See if she can you can contact her. While you're doing that, I have a video that I wanted to play, and It's just a 1-minute video, so we'll take a brief interlude, play this video, and Miss Mother Rose, see if you can contact her. I was recently asked a question, and it was a very interesting question. A caller asked me, Vince, out of all of the hundreds of videos you've done on YouTube, what's the single one most important YouTube video you have done? And I thought long and hard about it. And it's probably a video I did, it seems like a year, 2 years, 3 years ago maybe. And the name of the video is, What is Justice? I think that everyone who has a CPS case or has any type of case in general should watch that. I think it's about a 7-minute video where I'm standing in front of a whiteboard explaining what is justice. Justice isn't what you think it is. Please watch that video and educate yourself so that you will know how to deal with this judicial system and your CPS case. Let me give you some tips on how to talk to your prospective CPS attorney or even your CPS attorney when you speak to them in person or on the phone. The first thing you want to tell them is not a story of your case. Do not tell them that. Put a fence around the story of your case before you tell the story. Be ready to tell the attorney the posture of the case, where you're at in the case, the next court hearing, and what type of hearing it is. And then, if he or she has the time, you can tell the story of the case. A lot of times, the story has no impact on the different phases of the case. I know that sounds strange, but each phase in a CPS case is different from the previous phase. So what happened 2 phases ago may not be relevant now. Call me, 888-888-6582. Okay, Mother Rose, were we able to contact her?
Yes, I didn't get a response, so I don't know if there may be something wrong with her connection.
Yeah. You know what? We're kind of coming towards the end of the show. Are there any questions you wanted to ask me? Maybe I can answer for you and other folks.
I just wanted to mention before that we're on this group, and with Clara, she's done a lot of work on, in her case with herself. She was a full-time student. She works so hard. She's fully capable of being, a safe, caring parent. So I know what they did to her was, just horrible. And we're here to support each other through that. I think the question for me in my case, because we wanted the children to go with the grandparents, and they had filed something to get the kids, and CPS told us the judge said no, but we never received anything from the judge. I'm not sure if my parents can get him now, where they terminated my rights. We're in appeal, and then he's with foster people who want to adopt him. I'm not sure if my parents can try to adopt him.
Well, the answer is yes, but how likely it is, I don't know, without looking at the case. You know what I've been recommending a lot of people do, and I will recommend this to you. Go to the Department of DHHS. I think it's hhs.gov. It is the federal agency who controls all money to CPS all over the United States. They have a written online complaint form that you can fill out.
Okay.
And I do know, I have seen what the work they've done in a couple of cases in alleging where the parents or the relatives have alleged a civil rights violation. So I would make a complaint with them. The other thing I'd make a complaint with respect to is Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. All right. Sometimes they work separately. Sometimes the one case, the report I read that caused the return of a child after an adoption, if you can believe that, was a case where they worked together, and they had basically substantiated wrongdoing by the social workers in a particular county. here in California. So try that avenue.
Okay. We will.
There's also an avenue of a federal civil rights lawsuit. Um, I'm not saying that there's a great probability that you'll win, but I'm saying that these are alternatives that you can look at. The other thing is, I want to tell you, and you've learned the hard way, but for everyone looking at this, when you're in a case, from the very beginning of the case, it's extremely important what you and your lawyer do in a case throughout the case. And it's extremely important that you try to hold your lawyer responsible, and making sure that you have hearings and that things are done, that are going to be helping you. Okay. Anyway, oh, look who we have back. CJ, are you there?
Okay. Whew. So sorry. My phone completely restarted itself.
Oh, okay. We were talking, then you froze, and I
Yeah.
saw no video, no sound, no nothing.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I was just wrapping up the show. Before I wrap it up, and you know what, CJ, I want to invite you back on the show because you're having these technical difficulties. So I want you to contact Grace, GRACE, at VincentWDavis.com, and she'll make it, make it so we can come back on the show. We have a show tomorrow at 9 a.m. I don't know if we already have a scheduled guest, but Grace is here listening to the show. So maybe we could have CJ and Mother Rose back on to continue this discussion. One of the things I find so unfair is that, we do this 45-minute show, and, it really doesn't do justice to people's stories and to everything they've gone through, but it's just the constraint of the quote unquote, the show. And there's so many people that want to, come on and share their story. Someone advised me, and I've been toying with this, is making these live streams longer. I have a friend who is a divorce attorney in Atlanta, Georgia, and he does live streams for like 3 and 4 hours. Can you imagine 3 and 4 hours? But, maybe we should open it up and make the live streams longer, because these stories are so complex and subtle, and you telling a story in 20 minutes. I got 2 of you today, so you're doing 20 minutes apiece. That's kind of ridiculous, right? Because I never get the full feeling of what's going on, and it's kind of like, we're just touching the surface, which we are. We're just touching the surface. So Grace, I know you're there. You don't have to come on, but call these 2 ladies back and invite them back, so that we can get more information and perhaps help them more. CJ, before I end the show today, please tell me, was there any one question that you really wanted to ask me?
Do you think there's a chance of reinstating contact with my daughter so I can at least know her and she can know me and know that she's loved and wasn't given up?
Right. So the answer to that question, the way you ask it, is there a chance? The answer is yes. However, and this is the important part, what percentage chance is that? And I would have to say low, given the circumstances that you've told me, but it's not impossible. And I don't know if you saw a show a few months ago that we did. I actually had a mother on the show whose rights had been terminated for 5 years. Someone else adopted the kid. She got the kid. Oh, maybe nobody adopted her. I can't remember, but she lost her rights. 5 years goes by. Case is over. 5 years goes by. She gets the child back through CPS. And her rights are reinstated by the CPS court.
Wow.
Now, I didn't represent her, although she called me. And I told her the probabilities of that happening were low. She asked me to refer her to someone, which I did. I referred her to a guy that's a friend of mine. he took her case, and things just started falling into place for them. And he did a great job legally. But they got the kid back and got her rights reinstated. So when you say, is there a chance? There's a chance that I'm going to win the lottery tonight. There is a chance. I'm going to go buy a ticket and I could win. Now, what are the probabilities of that happening? Very low. But there's a chance. And for, I'm a parent, and I would never give up as long as there was a chance. And things happen over time, right? Your chance today may be different from your chance next month or next year. And by the way, they don't like to talk about this, but these adoptions through CPS court, they don't always work. I get calls frequently from foster parents all over. Hey, I adopted this kid and they didn't tell me this problem or that problem or this problem. And I want to give the kid back. I don't know if the system assumes that the child is going to be perfectly adjusted to losing a biological family and just go with an adoptive family. That's unrealistic. These kids are going to have problems. Put yourself in that position. You're going to have problems. It's going to affect you probably for the rest of your life.
It has, because I was that kid.
Mm-hmm. So, unfortunately, this foster care system is not the perfect solution. Out of my experience of doing this for 3 decades, I could come up with a lot of recommendations. I'm just one guy, though. I don't make the laws. And I can assure you the system, as it is, a multi-billion-dollar system in California, I'm not interested in what I have to say. These people, these governments, county governments are making billions of dollars. Everything's just fine for them. Just fine. Why would they interrupt that? But on the individual level, on the kid level, I can tell you right now, Mother Rose, CJ, your children will be significantly and substantially affected by what they've gone through and the fact that they were adopted.
Right.
I know.
Will they be able to overcome that situation? I don't know. Do kids ever overcome it? Yeah. Yeah, they do. I've met kids that were adopted that, at least on the surface, everything was fine. I've met kids that were adopted that will tell you straight out it was the most horrific thing that ever happened to their life, and their life has been completely ruined. So we just don't know. And I think there's a better system. This foster care system replaced an old system called the orphanage system. I don't know if you know that. And there were, huge problems with that. You can just Google it. And they came up with foster care thinking that it's a better situation. The problem is that it's a great idea. The problem is we have human beings that have to implement it. Right? And I don't think a parent's rights should be ever terminated.
Right.
No matter what, I think that should be some levels of continued contact if the therapist or the child think it's good. In most cases, it would be. Now, there are some cases, heinous cases. Look, is there child abuse in the world? Absolutely. And I'm not talking about a guy who did something heinous to a child. I'm not talking about that case. I'm talking about your case, Mother Rose. I'm talking about your case, CJ. Anyway, we could go on and on about this. And I know everyone wants to get on with their Saturday. Ladies, I'm going to have Grace contact you about coming back onto the show. I want to thank you for being guests today, CJ and Mother Rose, and we wish you well going forward. We're on tomorrow at 9 a.m. I hope to see everyone then. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.